Space. It's an interesting thing, quite like computers are. Today, we're going to learn about the challenges that came with sending a computer into space. From Linus Tech Tips, why it's almost impossible to put a computer in space, yet we've somehow done it multiple times. The Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Think about all of these rockets and satellites we've sent to space that have computers in them that we're able to interact with and get data from. Well, today we're going to learn about, like I said, why it was hard to achieve that in the first place. Boom!
Between the radiation, the microgravity,
Yep.
and the extreme constraints
Woo!
on power and cooling,
Yep.
space is just about the
It's
worst
hard
possible
for computers
place
to be there.
put a computer.
Yep.
Oh, can you guys let me in?
Okay.
better.
Kioxia.
Now,
So storage-based.
if you follow space research and exploration, you probably know that space is just full of computers. Like
Kioxia.
this one. So, how do they do that? Well, the short answer is by replacing them a lot.
Yeah.
The ISS takes regular shipments of dozens of laptops at a time, which get, and this is great, this is a direct quote, absolutely destroyed.
Yeah. Seems
But
about
not
right.
every computer can be disposable. And in 2017, the Mad Lads at NASA,
Okay.
HP Enterprise, and Kioxia,
Kioxia.
who sponsored this video, collaborated to
Yep.
create Spaceborne 1.
Okay.
The first edge computing server that was intended to run for an extended period of time on the
All right.
International Space Station. Of course, it being their first attempt, some
It
let's say
failed.
learning took place, and it turned out that the supercapacitors in the SSDs were prone to radiation-related failure.
Ooh.
Who knew? But since all it was ever meant to do was run benchmarks anyway, the mission was considered a huge success.
Okay.
And in 2021, they launched Spaceborne 2.
Okay.
Whose purpose was to move beyond proof of concept and explore practical applications for on-station compute,
Okay.
especially data analysis using AI. But the story doesn't end there.
Oh.
Behind me is new Spaceborne 2.
Ooh.
For administrative reasons, it has the same name and core specs as last time.
Yeah.
But it just took off earlier this year, and it features more storage than
Okay.
ever.
Whoa,
over-
wait. So, HPE Edgeline EL4000 Edgeline with a Edge server with a GPU, 8 1TB Kioxia M.2 SSDs, HPE DL360 Gen 10 server, traditional 2-socket HPC compute node, and then this is going to be, dang. So the first one has I'm just going to say terabyte because it's close to a terabyte. Kioxia 2.5-inch SSDs, and it's got 4 of those, and it's also got 3, that's going to be a 32. It's just, those have been formatted. 4 32 terabyte Kioxia PM6 2.5-inch SSDs. Dang. Spaceborne computer to Kioxia SSD going into space.
130 terabytes.
Yep.
Which is an incredible feat when you consider the design challenge. I mean,
130, so 4 times 32 is, yeah, it's roughly 130 plus, but like formatting, so you get you get your 120 here, you get 8 there, you get another 4 there, so you get a little bit more than that.
where do they even install these things?
Look up.
Oh, right.
In the roof.
I guess they don't really need a ladder, do they?
No, but
You might. Dang, Jake. Dang, Jake on him.
To illustrate why edge computing is needed on the ISS,
Yep.
let's look at a use case that's focused on astronaut safety.
Okay.
These are the EVA gloves
Yep.
that the crew members wear during spacewalks. And according to this article from 2016, they were responsible for half of all spacesuit injuries. So, to ensure their integrity between uses, NASA requires the crew to take hundreds of photographs of them from every angle
Ooh.
and then beam them back to Earth, where machine learning is used to
Okay.
analyze them for scratches or other hazards. Except for one small problem. That data transfer takes 5 days. But with Spaceborne? Oh, I don't know, how about 45 seconds? Not only
Yeah, I was
is
about
this
to
a
say,
huge
it shouldn't-
time
I was
saver,
about to say, it
but
shouldn't be. The first one's ridiculous. Second one, it shouldn't be too bad because it's probably got some sort of gigabit connection back to Earth. The new one does.
with only a handful of pictures needing
Yeah.
to go to Earth for further analysis,
The aliens.
Spaceborne can free up a significant amount of the crew's limited network bandwidth for other,
Yeah.
more interesting things. With such obvious benefits, then, you gotta be wondering, why did no one ever try to put a server on the ISS before? The short answer is, after seeing how the crew laptops fared,
I was about to say probably because they saw how everything else was, every other electronic failed, and no company was willing to take the financial risk of building all of this stuff just for it to fail in 3 weeks.
many people thought that they just plain wouldn't work. And even if they did, there were a host of other hurdles to clear.
Okay.
Like the launch. Okay, this is
Yeah.
really cool. Rocket companies like SpaceX and Northrop
Okay.
Grumman have shake test machines that are programmed with profiles that will simulate the launch conditions of their respective rockets. And if you've seen
That's
that
kinda
viral
cool.
video of the machine that disassembles hard drives by
It's-
vigorously
isn't
shaking them,
same thing.
you're going to know that surviving that kind of treatment is no mean feat. Well, these machines managed it both in the simulation and in the real world.
Oh,
They actually
yeah.
lifted off at the end of this January.
Dang.
Every piece of equipment must also pass an acoustic chamber test and a user-friendliness evaluation to ensure the station crew can install and manage
Yeah.
it. And oh, here's a good one. Apparently, all equipment sent up to the ISS goes through what's called a white glove test, which thankfully is not what it sounds like. Basically, you put on a pair of white gloves and then you just manhandle the crap out of it. If the gloves snag or tear on anything,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a potential source of injury. I'm gonna need you to file that down.
Yeah.
Fun fact, they actually do on site and then repeat the test. I just hope they weren't filing any RAM sticks. Speaking of,
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at these machines.
Okay.
Machines, because it's not just one.
No, you showed
I know
two.
it was kind of the point of this
Oh,
whole
wait.
experiment.
There's
but
two
it
in
still
the
weirds
box?
me out that these are just bog standard HP Enterprise systems that you could order on their site today. They don't even have lead armor or anything. In this case, we're looking at an Edgeline 4000, which is a multi-blade system, and a DL360 dual socket server.
Okay.
We asked why these specific machines, and the answer we got was shockingly relatable. We sorted the HP server catalog by depth, power draw, and
Okay.
GPU support, and these were the ones we were left with. All right, fair enough.
Fair.
As for why two different machines, well, here's the thing. In a perfect world, multiples of the same machine would have been better. But due to power constraints, they chose to have one with more CPU cores
Okay.
for more traditional scientific applications.
one with more GPU?
And one with fewer CPU cores, but with a GPU for
Yeah.
deep learning and AI. One
Okay.
thing we needed for both, however, is ample storage.
Shout out to Kioxia. They sponsored Linus's video, so
Yeah,
that's definitely why he's getting to look at
sponsored this
these.
and brought us out here. So let's
Yep.
take a look at the, let's call them unique choices that they made for
Unique.
their storage configurations. First up, obviously gone is any trace of supercapacitors.
Yeah.
So Kioxia can proudly say that their SSDs are space ready, I guess. But what's less obvious is why they chose a SAS interface drive rather than NVMe for their high-speed bulk storage. I mean, you would think this is space-age technology. They'd want the fastest thing possible. But
No.
these drives were selected for their balance of performance,
Okay.
reliability, and especially
Ooh,
power
wattage.
efficiency.
Dang.
When you're looking at a
The wattage.
shared
Oops.
power budget
What?
across two servers that is less than a typical gaming rig, every single
Ooh.
watt counts. Oh, right, and that's even under ideal
250
conditions.
watts
At any given time to conserve
most?
power
That's
for other
crazy.
priorities on the station, the team can be asked to operate in half power mode or even to shut down entirely for large operations like docking. So the new DL360 server,
Okay.
this guy right here, gets four 30.72 terabyte PM6 enterprise drives totaling 120
Yeah, roughly,
terabytes
roughly.
of raw bulk storage for scientific data.
Really
and
closer to
backups. Then, for application drives, they've got a really wild config.
4 or
Again,
something like
they
that.
went with 4 drives, but this time
8.
it's their RM6s.
Oh,
Again,
this-
they're using SAS for lower power, but this time,
Yeah.
2 of the drives are operating in a data redundant mirror,
Okay.
and the other 2 are basically just chilling there. ready to
hot
be put
spares.
into action in the event of a failure. 2 warm spares out of
Yeah.
a 4-drive array would sound like crazy paranoia on Earth. But I assure you that in space, where bit flips from random radiation are much more...
Yeah, like the Mario 64-bit flip that teleported the dude up TikTok clock. Them random bit flips, man, they get you. They get
common. It's perfectly reasonable. I mean, other than the overkill drive config and the 28-volt power conversion that they need to run it on the ISS, there's
Right.
not much to say about this thing. It's pretty much a bog standard server. There is one
seems very
cool demo
standard,
that they
just
said you
with-
could run though.
you. It seems very standard, just with less drives than a typical server would have.
Yeah, they offered to let us pull one of the drives out of this dummy machine and live swap it into this running machine to show that no data loss will occur. Want to do the honors?
Sure.
All they asked is that you put it in bay 8. See, you can see the drive's actually
So I
operating in
shouldn't
there
use
right now.
bay 7. That works. Look at that.
I mean, that's
Okay.
RM6. That would be bad if it wasn't Kioxia. And then
Awkward.
let's check the size. Beautiful. 3.8 terabytes.
Okay.
Exactly what we want. They're not the exact drives that are on the space station, but we wanted a different capacity to show you that it's working. And those are expensive. Look at that.
Yeah.
Status rebuilding.
I mean, this seems like a lot of extra steps. We could have just looked at the light.
Yeah, the light, yeah, it's going.
Yeah.
Success!
And whether you're looking for a SAS drive, an NVMe drive,
Surely there's a way to get like a computer up there that wouldn't brick like they talked about at the beginning. Surely there's like some sort of computer that you could do that with.
high capacity or high performance, we're going to have a bunch of
I don't
Kioxia's
know.
great enterprise grade drives linked in the description down below.
Enterprise
I think I'll
drives.
let you take this one apart. It's appropriately Linus size.
Okay, let's take a look at the second server that's packed into each locker. The EL4000 is a blade
Okay.
chassis, so the servers are basically these little slide-in cards that, yeah, I know, aren't these cute or what?
Wait, pull it out.
And they go in on the side
Look at that!
instead of from the
That's
front.
the whole
Wow,
drive?
And they managed to
That's the whole server? That's crazy. That's actually ridiculous. That's ridiculous for me to see that and be like, server.
sneak 4 Kioxia XG6 NVMe drives into each of these
How many?
blades. Well, when I say each of these blades, I should say they had the power budget for 4 drives, but they didn't have the power budget for 4 blades. In the
Okay.
flight configuration of this system,
Yeah, you can put
they
4.
ship with just one of the 4 blades
Oh.
installed, though it should be noted, they do fly up a spare blade per system in the event of a failure. There's just no way that that poor locker can support both of these blades and the other server running concurrently. Let's put you away and shift our focus to
Okay.
the locker.
So that one only has one running at a time, but it has a hot spare, or I guess it's a cold spare because it doesn't turn on unless the first one dies, and that's just so they don't have. I guess I think I understand that, right?
Now, obviously, there's no real up or
Yeah.
down on the ISS.
No.
As it whizzes around the Earth at around 28,000 kilometers an hour. But to improve
That's
comfort
ridiculous,
for the astronauts,
but-
they tend to mount directional items like plants in a fixed orientation, which
Uh-huh.
put our lockers, the drawers that hold our servers, in the ceiling. There are
Okay.
2 of these lockers, each containing an identical system loadout for workload sharing and redundancy. And these lockers present some serious design challenges, starting with the fact that they use a standard that quite literally doesn't exist on Earth. Express Rack.
Express-
To pack
what's
the servers
that?
in then, HP Enterprise had to get kind of creative. They found the shortest servers they could,
Okay.
and then they stuffed them in sideways, and they're using a combination of air cooling and water cooling.
Okay.
The air cooling uses a system on the ISS called AAA. So at the back of these lockers, there's 2 cold air supplies
Okay.
and then 2 hot air returns. That handles about 20% of the cooling for the servers.
Okay.
Obviously, 20%, not 100%.
No.
They're going to need some more. And that's where this water cooling comes in. This isn't a one-to-one for how it would be deployed on the ISS.
No.
For one thing, these fittings, 3D printed mock-ups. Real fitting,
Woo.
$800 a pop.
That's $800. What am I doing with my life? I should just go make those.
If you were even allowed to buy them. This tubing, cheap vinyl from Home Depot.
Yeah.
Real tubing must be made of stainless steel. In fact, any wetted surface, so anything that comes in contact with water, is supposed to be made out of stainless steel. But we can still illustrate how it's supposed to work.
Okay.
So, on this side, these go into a heat exchanger much like this one.
Okay.
This is actually from the first generation Spaceborne, but functionally it's the same. It pumps cold water into here,
Okay.
chills the air inside the system, and then takes the warm water out to be dissipated to the photovoltaic heat exchangers that are plumbed up with liquid ammonia coolant and mounted to the exterior of the station to sink that heat into space. You need these kinds of special heat exchangers because while we think of space as cold and we see people, blasted out of airlocks and they freeze over.
Rest in peace,
whatever
Arnold.
in
Yep.
movies. The truth is that for traditional methods of heat dissipation, you need air. And in the near vacuum of space, well, it ain't there.
There's no air.
Air?
No,
Get it?
That's a bad pun, but I got it.
Cheesy jokes aside, the two cooling systems together are good for removing about 400 watts of heat from each locker. But that's a combined
400?
budget. So if this GPU server kicks into high gear, well, these CPUs better just chillax for a little bit. Now let's talk about one of my favorite subjects, networking. There's 4 standard RJ45 ports on the front of the... Okay, I'm gonna show you on the real one.
Yeah.
As I was saying, 4 ports on each locker.
Okay.
2 of them connect both of the ISS's internal gigabit networks to a separate redundant switch inside the locker.
Okay.
And the other 2 links are gonna go between the 2 lockers at 10 gigabit. Why 10 gig? Well, because for either backups or for multi-node workloads, that is a heck of a lot better than gigabit, and the power budget didn't allow for anything faster. Cool, I guess I'm starting to notice a pattern here.
The power budget doesn't allow
That's all
it.
pretty standard, but things become less so when you look at the station side of these network cables. This is a 37-pin military spec locking connector. These are designed for power and data, but in this application, just 8 of the pins would be used. And it is $220 for just this part. Now on the space station, NASA provides these cables for you, but for testing's sake, really, here on Earth, HP Enterprise had to make their own. Fantastic. What's really gonna blow your mind though, is for all of their expensive networking, these machines do not have a normal internet connection. Just a private link back to Earth that NASA not only limits to a mighty 1 megabit per second, but that they...
A megabit? And you put 10 gigabit?
Also encourage folks not to make full use of. Also, even now in 2024, it doesn't have 24/7 connectivity. Pretty much every hour or two, there's a period of downtime that can be anywhere as short as a few minutes or as long as 45 minutes. And that's because they have to prioritize generating enough power for the station. And when the giant solar arrays point toward the sun, they can block line of sight with the satellites that provide connectivity, which, that's a fun fact. Even though the ISS orbits less than 500 kilometers from the surface of the Earth, our ping times to the ISS, and yes, we got to ping the ISS, which was pretty cool, but our ping times were atrocious, reaching near...
Ew, brother, ew. What is that? Brother, ew. You can't even play Fortnite on that. You can't do anything. That's terrible.
Nearly a second as we uploaded some of the dankest memes that Earth had to offer. LTTstore.com.
Oh my... Yes, we ran this on the space station. You sent LTTstore.com to the International Space Station.
Now, we asked why that is, and the answer was twofold. One, it's really old.
Yeah.
Okay? Fair enough. But also, 2, the station's internet relay is in geosynchronous orbit, over 35,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface. And, well, what I said was, well, there's your problem right there. It's just really far. And you might be wondering, well, why don't they just use Starlink? That's a good question. Someday they might, but for now they don't. And
well, I think they don't use Starlink because Starlink points down. I don't think the satellites would be able to point up. I don't think you would get a connection, but
HP and the team on
that'd
the
be a pretty
ISS
cool one.
have to work around the constraints of the current setup. I mean, for crying out loud, it took them 4 years to validate that, we can even just run a normal computer up here and actually expect this thing to be reliable. They can't just switch to something and go, I don't know, I hope it works. Oh, by the way, here's another fun one. There's no API to determine if their connection is up or down. So instead, what they do is buffer all their communications. In basic terms, that means that they ping every second, and if the ping succeeds, they send data and then hope that the connection stayed up during that time. It's a pretty good system.
That's terrible.
Not a perfect one, but certainly enough for us to learn a lot from the Spaceborne project. Even though Spaceborne 2 has been in action for 3 years, there's still so much to learn. 2 of the servers have hardware RAID cards for their drives, for example, costing both mass and power consumption, while 2 of them use software RAID, which obviously doesn't consume any mass, but could impact power consumption even more depending on the loads. And one of them could be more or less reliable than the other.
In space at least.
Try, which is kind of a recurring theme here. So if you want to learn more about the Spaceborne computer project, we're going to have some resources linked for you down below. And we're also going to have a link to some great enterprise storage options from our sponsor, Kioxia. We're truly grateful for this unique opportunity to get, realistically, as close as I ever will to the real ISS. A prop in a sound stage in LA. But hey, thanks Kioxia for the opportunity.
That's pretty cool though, that they got to look at that. I knew a lot of this would be hard to do. I don't know how to say that. Space is hard. Space hates electronics, basically, is what we know, and so that's currently where we stand with electronics. Space hates them, so we have to work around that. I'm very surprised we haven't found anything that stops the radiation of space from killing like a laptop. Especially considering we have like the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which are... I don't even know how far Voyager 1 is away from Earth right now. How far is Voyager... How far is Voyager 1? About 162.7 astronomical units, which is roughly equivalent to 24.3 billion kilometers or 15.1 billion miles. Where the heliosphere? Where's Voyager 1? Where's Voyager? That's not helping. That doesn't really help either. Voyager 1 is far. And that still works. We still get connections from that. I mean, it takes a long time for us to get a signal from Voyager 1, but we still do get like signals from Voyager 1 every once in a while. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed and got to learn something along the way about how computers work in space. And I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. Take it easy and peace out, everybody. Also, the Mavs haven't played yet, but I'm ready. I'm calling the sweep tonight, baby. I'm calling the sweep. Calling the sweep tonight. Get the brooms out. Just like how the Boston Celtics swept the Indiana Pacers last night as of when I'm recording this. Bye, guys. Hopefully the Mavericks win tonight. Go Mavs. MFFL.